Hi, this is Volans for SonicScoop, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Avid Carbon audio interface. Of course, I'll give you my humble opinion on things like build quality, ease of use and sound quality, but we'll also take a look at what makes the Carbon different and how its features might give serious Pro Tools users that added edge. Headline features of the Carbon include 8 HDX chips, ultra-low latency operation, a whole host of inputs and outputs, and some great bundled software. So let's break these down and get into it. So first of all, let's take a look at specifications and I/O. So from the top, we've got 8 analog ins. These can be any combination of line in, 8 mic preamps, or 2 Hi-Z inputs accessed from the front panel. Now, jumping straight to some of the digital inputs and outputs here, there is dual ADAT inputs, allowing you 16 inputs if you use 44.1 or 48 kHz sample rates. But realistically, this could give you 24 analog inputs when coupled with the right ADAT interfaces. On the output side, things get much better. Not only have you got 8 line outputs on D-sub, but there's also a stereo pair specifically for monitoring. Now, 4 of the line outputs on the D-sub can go to 2 more sets of monitors, so you can have 3 independent sets of monitors and easily switch between them, still leaving you 4 outputs on the D-sub for other kit or returns or whatever you want to use them for. On top of these outputs, there's no less than 4 separate headphone outputs. These have completely independent converters, which means you can pretty much run your entire band just off these 4 headphone outputs and have completely independent mixes. Something else worth talking about here is the variable impedance feature. On inputs 5 to 8 and on both the Hi-Zs on the front, you can have this variable impedance activated, and we've known for a long time that this means you can get the best out of some of your mics and instruments, and it reacts in a similar way to specific amplifiers or specific preamps. And this brings us to how you connect the Carbon to your computer, and also I'll talk a little bit about setup here. So the Carbon doesn't use USB or Thunderbolt like many traditional audio interfaces. It actually uses the AVB protocol. Now essentially this is audio over IP, and it uses Ethernet. I actually had the best success using the official Apple Thunderbolt 3 to Ethernet adapter, and as soon as I connected Carbon, everything was recognized in the network interface within audio MIDI settings. Now it's worth mentioning that Carbon is Mac OS X only at the moment, and Avid's rule of thumb is that you'll need a Mac with at least 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. This should ensure compatibility. Now once Carbon is recognized by the system, it is actually a class compliant network audio device, so you can use it outside of Pro Tools in other applications, but of course you won't get all the bells and whistles that we'll discuss shortly. But to round everything up here as far as setup goes, once it was recognized in OS X, I opened Pro Tools Ultimate, the latest version, and everything was available right within Pro Tools. And this is really where Carbon shines. Unsurprisingly, Carbon integrates at a very deep level with Pro Tools, and the interfacing between the two is excellent. So open those usual windows in Pro Tools where you control your interface, and Carbon is there. All of its inputs and outputs are there. All of its DSP is automatically in the metering, and I just found this to be super refreshing, and really the integration here is the money shot. So what do you get with those 8 HDX chips inside Pro Tools? Well, you get what Avid call a hybrid recording system, which essentially means you get very, very low latency on your inputs when you're using DSP. You can track through plugins with basically no latency. You can switch channels between DSP and native with only a tiny fraction of a wait. And if you're passing your project to somebody else without DSP, they'll automatically get the native version. So you sort of get the best of both worlds. So this process was really enjoyable and super fast. I just wish I could use Carbon in my other DAWs for exactly the same thing. That's probably asking a little much. So a quick word on sound quality, and I'm always a little reluctant to get into this area because it's so subjective. Opinions differ all over the place, but I can tell you this: when I tested the Carbon in anger, I had a dangerous converter, a Lynx High-Low, an Apollo X, and the converters that you can see in the Key 3 speakers behind me, which are very high-end converters, and I use them a lot of the time when I'm mastering in the box. So I had a really good spread of different interfaces and converters to test against, and I can say that the Carbon sat somewhere around the Lynx High-Low and Key 3 converters, and I say this because those converters are very transparent or crisp. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of words like this, but Let's say it's not coloured and it's not got rich tones. Some converters you go to for a specific tone or sound and you know they have a sound, or they're slightly duller or slightly brighter. I would say the Carbon is very neutral and very transparent. Also, the clocking is very good. I used it as a master clock and I switched between different interfaces using those as the master clock, and it seemed to do an excellent job of locking. Great stereo image, there was no jitter, no issues. I bounced some masters with hardware on my 2-bus, and there was no problems. So when it comes to value, what do I think about the Carbon interface? Well, really, this is only going to be really valuable to Pro Tools users. It's not going to be super valuable to anybody else. If it could be used in other DAWs, then clearly that would be a game changer. But right now, for the Pro Tools user in maybe a home studio or a smaller recording suite, this is probably the best option in my mind. And if I use Pro Tools all the time as my main DAW, I would definitely get the Carbon. There's no doubt in my mind. The prices that I've seen currently on the street are comparable to similar systems with similar I/O and similar DSP if they have DSP. And the build quality is second to none. It's pretty much all metal. There's some plastic on the front. The metering's very clear. The layout's great. The buttons and knobs feel like they're going to last. There's one thing I'll say about the build that's both a pro and a con. The power supply is built into the unit, so there's a switching power supply inside the unit. The pro of this means that you've not got a huge power brick hanging out the back, but it does mean that there's an inbuilt fan. Now, I'm not sure if this is cooling the power supply, the DSP chips, or maybe both, but you can hear it. It's not super loud and intrusive, but it's there. So if this is a problem for you, I would get one on loan, have a listen to it, and see if it's going to ruin the silence of your control room. Also, when it comes to value, there's a load of bundled software that comes with the Carbon, and that's really worth remembering. Not only do you get a year of Pro Tools Ultimate and all of the plugins that come with that, but you also get third-party plugins from my good friends at Brainworks and Plugin Alliance being one. But here's the entire list of everything you get. So there's a considerable amount of stuff here, and many of these plugins will work with the hybrid DSP system, most notably the compressors and channel strips from Brainworks. So that's going to be super useful and essentially gives you a DSP console right inside your Pro Tools mixer. So there's no doubt in my mind that the Carbon is an excellent bit of kit. If you're a Pro Tools user and you're looking for something at a competitive price point with DSP that only fills a single rack unit and allows you to expand in the future to get those higher I/O counts, then it's really something to look at. So hopefully this has given you a nice high-level overview of the Carbon and has helped you in your purchase decisions. I know I'm going to be trying to hang on to this one for as long as possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.